Hello and welcome to Applied Curiosity. My name is Jai Bhagat and teaching is the love of my life. The goal of this newsletter is to help people who are teachers, learners, and practitioners in science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. AI is hitting a critical threshold where scientific acceleration and code generation is going to blow up this year, and it is going to change how we learn forever. My goal of this is to document what is changing right now and to hack on experiments and just organize the information for you. My idea here is that the future of learning is going to be about how you cross that messy middle. What do you need to do in order to truly apply and analyze what you're learning into your actual day to day life so it means something to you and you compound on it? I keep a bunch of free workbooks on my website because I'm also an instructional designer. I'm working on trying to solve a very hard problem called Bloom's Two Sigma problem. And so I'm going to be documenting my journey of every week experimenting with AI for science, technology, engineering, the arts, and math. So what you're about to see live right now is I'm going to build this entire newsletter in front of you so that you can really feel like you're part of the experience. I know a lot of people are reading newsletters, but I feel like you're kind of skimming it. And so I want to kind of bring you behind the scenes and see what it's like to actually make this. All right, so this is part of a 10-part series. I'm currently taking a class about AI research. I'll share that real quick. So there's a whole curriculum about AI safety, and it's from Arena 3.0. I'll pull it up real quick. So I'm currently taking a class at Fractal in Brooklyn, and I'm trying to go through this curriculum, which is like really hard for me to do, and so I'm giving myself a project to do as I go along it. Um, so this is all just about like how do you build an actual model and how do you train it and how do you interpret it. And so I'm really trying to get deeper into this area so I can comment on what's happening. So this is part of a 10-part series. I'm trying to go through the curriculum with a group that's in Brooklyn called Fractal Tech in Brooklyn, and so it's been like a really nice experience so far of just like kind of going to these different events and just kind of sitting on a floor and learning with other people who want to hack. It's been a great experience. So this is just like an experiment from that. So the big thing I want to talk about right now is that you know the big thing is that people and workers are being blamed for kind of cheating with AI. But I want to say, hey, wait a second, given what's happening in the world right now, let me tell you why cheating makes sense. So that's the argument I'm about to make. Okay, so I just opened with the intro. And so my idea is I want to capture people with real meaningful data. I am going to have to source this real quick. Let me pause. Okay, good. I have this sourced correctly. That's very important now. So the thing I want to say is that, you know, I'm not talking to people that much anymore. I'm talking to AI first, and I'm talking to lots of different AIs. And this pattern isn't new to AI. However, everything's even more personalized than it was before, and you can disconnect even more to talk to AI because AI is more interesting most of the time because it knows exactly what's going on in your head at the time because you're telling it and feeding it that information. And so it prevents you from needing to go face discomfort to go seek connections because you're immediately being satisfied now. And so I think it matters because students and workers are being blamed, but take a look at what the incentives are right now. And so that's the next thing that I want to get into because that's what research is about. It's taking a look at what are the incentives. And so I'm going to now take this from trying to be like way too heady with like actual like machine learning and science into something that is more stories and game theory. So that's my next goal. Let's see if I can do that. All right, so I'm at a decision point. I want to introduce the incentives now. But to introduce the incentives, I have to tell you who the players in the game are. And so we have the teacher, the learner, the practitioner. And then each of these is a character and they have their own incentives. The teacher wants to teach to the test, that's the incentive for the job. The learner wants to do well on the test because that is how the school system is structured. The practitioner is looking to apply knowledge into the field to solve the problems they learned about. And then the admin wants to monitor the system. And then we'll talk about who creates the system beyond this. But the actual goal of the teacher is they want to prepare students for the world. The learner wants to enjoy their youth and just be on the right path. The practitioner wants to stay relevant and continue moving upward in the right collective. And then the admin wants to reduce friction and improve metrics. So we have these variable desires and incentives that we see. The actual goal is missing from the incentive. So that's the main thing I want to point out. Little hot tip on how I make this. I use Anti-Gravity by Google, which is a really amazing coding tool that gives me access not only to the ability to write code, but to also use Gemini's Nano Banana model so that I can create images. I find that it can really extend my brain in a lot of different areas, and it's a free tool. That's why I'm sharing it. I get no money for sharing it though. Okay, I just wrote this section and I found that it was a little different than what I was expecting. I didn't expect to have so much text to talk about with the incentives of the players. But then I ended up getting into the second factor here, which is time. So maybe I should probably reintroduce this as a different thing than incentives. So let me pause real quick. Okay, to fix the text problem, I'm just like, if I had a subheading saying the pillars of cheating, incentives are pillar one, then time is pillar two. And then in understanding time, we have taking a look at the scheduling of school, the frequency of school, the depth of school, and then my conclusions uh, about the relationship between time and school. And now for this next section for attention, I don't want more text here. So what I'm gonna advocate for is me telling my personal story briefly, so that this video doesn't explode to too long in time. So now in this section, I want to tell you a little bit more about my story. So my name is Jai Bhagat. Teaching is the love of my life. And when I was growing up, the school I went to was so unequal. I lived in the richest state in the country, Connecticut, but I grew up in Waterbury, Connecticut. And I'll show you real quick. So in Waterbury, Connecticut, there is more than one student being arrested every school day. Think about that for a quick second. A minor walking out in handcuffs. When I was in elementary school, an 8-year-old kid got arrested. Um, the type of neighborhood we lived in, one of the gangs around was using him as a drug mule, and they were pushing pounds of drugs through this kid. So I want to tell you my story real quick about learning and the conditions of learning. How are you supposed to learn when things like that are going on? How are you supposed to learn when you're hungry? These are the types of things that I saw going to school. And I want to kind of tell you a story of tragedy, grief, and acceptance. But I want to add a new player into the game, something the administrators would want to advocate for, a talented and gifted program. Being that if you're in a situation of tragedy and grief, but you are an exceptional talent, should resources be directed to you so that you can have a better future compared to the other data points, and the data points being the other students? So this gets to a really nasty game that administrators and funders want to go for, which is trying to find these inner city youth and use their trauma to get them to disassociate from their communities and get deep, deep into hard sciences and math, things that'll then force their parents to send the kid away to look for other options. But the goal, I think, is more so filtering for these kids who have the ability to hyper focus even through tragedy or grief. when we think about students as just numbers of what they're going to output economically, it doesn't help the community in any way, shape, or form. And it further alienates a lot of these kids to then say, I never want to go back to that place. And you are really advocating for much more of a brain drain. And so we have a big issue here, which is, how do we handle these cases? Should we put all the smart kids into one class, give them more resources per capita, along with more other administrators, or do we figure something out for everyone in the school itself? All right, so the last step is I'm gonna embed this video into the piece. So I'm gonna hop off here and I'm just gonna put the Loom link in. And if you made it this far, thank you so much. It really means a lot to me. I'm a hacker, I'm a teacher. Teaching is the love of my life. I'm putting this 10-part series together about how I'm applying this research engineering class into what I'm predicting for AI and what I see going forward. We do have an event coming up, AI for Science. We are looking for sponsors, as well as lightning talks on people who want to come together and talk about what the future of that is going to look like. That's going to be based in New York City. But if you made it this far, thank you so much. I appreciate you so much. And write me a comment or send me a note.